Hey everyone, it's Rod Santomassimo with the Massimo Show with another amazing guest, Mr. Mike Robbins. Mike's an expert in emotional intelligence, leadership, teamwork, and company culture. He's worked with so many diverse groups and clients throughout the world, including Google, Wells Fargo, Microsoft, eBay, and many more. He's actually authored 5 books, and he's also been featured in the Harvard Business Review, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, as well as ABC News and NPR. Hi, this is Rod Santomassimo, and welcome to the Massimo Show. The objective of the Massimo Show is to share how you can maximize your personal, professional margin. That's right. Let's make more money in less time. Let's turn chaos into clarity, confusion into confidence, and income into real wealth. Along with sharing my insight on how I grew a multi-million-dollar professional business, we're going to bring you the expert advice from a variety of authors, consultants, and thought leaders who will provide the tools you need to maximize your own personal and professional margin. Welcome to the Massimo Show. Mike, welcome to the Massimo Show.
Thanks for having me on. Good to be here.
We love having amazing folks like yourself to give so much value to our audience. And that's what we're going to do today, folks. But as you all know, we always start with, who the heck is Mike? Take us back to high school, Mike. Where were you and what did you enjoy doing?
So high school, Skyline High School, Oakland, California. I still live here in the San Francisco Bay Area. My big passion for most of my life growing up, Rob, was playing baseball. And I was actually pretty good at it. I got drafted out of Skyline High School in Oakland by the New York Yankees.
Okay, Yankees, yeah.
I didn't end up signing a contract with the Yankees at that time, though, because I got an opportunity to play baseball in college at Stanford, which is about an hour from where I grew up. So I went down to Stanford, played baseball there, then got drafted again after my junior year at Stanford by the Kansas City Royals in 1995. And I did sign a contract at that time with the Royals. And the way that it works in baseball is you get drafted by a major league team, whether it's the Yankees or the Royals or any of the other teams, you have to go into the minor leagues, right? And there's a bunch of levels of the minor leagues. You got to work your way up. Unfortunately for me, I was a pitcher, and my third season still in the minors, I went out to pitch one night. I threw one pitch. I tore ligaments in my elbow, blew my arm out when I was 23 after starting baseball when I was 7.
Yikes.
Yeah. 2 years, 3 surgeries later, I was forced to retire from baseball at the age of 25. Didn't know what the heck I was going to do with the rest of my life because I'd gotten my education, but hadn't really thought about a real plan B. It was just make it to the big leagues. Was forced to then figure out, who am I? What the heck am I going to do if I'm not a baseball player? And that wasn't a very easy process or transition, as you can imagine, but spent a couple years in the late 90s working for a few internet companies, startups, and was in sales and business development and learning a bunch of stuff, but not really all that interested and passionate about it. And then the dot-com bubble burst and I lost my job. So now I'm 26 and out of work and don't really know what the heck, but had this secret sort of fantasy that I barely even talked about out loud, that I wanted to speak and I wanted to write and I wanted to coach and I wanted to inspire people in whatever way that I could, but did not know how one starts a business doing that, how you make money doing that. Had no clue whatsoever. So that actually, the start of this year, 2021, is the 20th year. I started my business basically on January 1st, 2001. And declared at the age of 26, I'm going to be a motivational speaker and a life coach and hopefully one day an author. And I knew I didn't know what that meant or how to do it. That was the intention. And 20 years later, a lot of good fortune, a lot of support, a lot of help, a lot of determination, a lot of trial and error, lots of error. And I've been able to do this work that I absolutely love and am so grateful and humbled to get to do and proud of.
Mike, that's amazing. There's so much though common threads that you have and business owners have and anyone has with expectations and failures and surprises and needing to adapt. Think about the recent pandemic, of course.
Yeah.
I remember, I guess when you went to Stanford, you went to an amazing school. And then when I played lacrosse in college and then I realized maybe like you, I focused too much on the sports side versus the education side.
Right.
So then I decided to go to Duke to get my MBA, realizing I need to do something now. But then I remember the dot-com bubble burst and I was unemployed like you were as well. And you're like, what the heck are we going to do? So I've been that journey and many of our listeners have been to that journey And we're in that journey today. And many listeners today are saying, I'm also now unemployed. I'm also now out of a job. I'm also now not sure what to do. And the economy isn't really that good. So take us back to the year 2000, 2008. I was unemployed and I started the Massimo Group. So you have 8 more years of this grinding out entrepreneurial success.
Yes.
But what was it that allowed you to go from dream and vision to actual realizing you're crafting a business now? Can you recall what that may have been?
Yeah. So basically for me, my baseball career ends in 98. I start working in the .com world. I work for one company for about a year and a half, get hired by a startup that was supposed to go public and we were all going to get rich and that whole thing. And then the .com bubble bursts. I lose my job, Rod, in late July of 2000. And I would joke that it was before it was cool to get laid off, because in San Francisco, Silicon Valley area, from about September of 2000 until maybe the next spring, everybody was getting laid off because all the .com companies were basically going under. But so I was scared. But the thing was, it was a blessing in disguise because I didn't love what I was doing. I wasn't passionate about it. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't really want to do that, sell internet advertising. And so the first couple months, I was a little bit lost. They gave me a little bit of severance so I could pay the rent, thankfully. But I was 26 years old living in San Francisco. It wasn't cheap. But what happened, I started to try to look for a job, couldn't find a job because everybody was laying people off. They weren't hiring people. I met my now wife, Michelle, about 2 months later. And that ended up being probably the most extraordinary thing that happened in my life because she is incredible. But my wife was an entrepreneur and she had started a staffing business a few years before I met her. It was going quite well and she had built it and grown it. And what she said to me, I meet her and it's the worst time to meet a woman. What do you do for a living? I'm unemployed, right? It's great. Literally after our first date, and I talked to her a bit about my vision and how I have this passion, or she's, you're not unemployed, you're starting a business. And she was literally the first person that said that to me. And I'm like, I'm doing what? And she's like, you have this passion, you want to speak and you want to write and you want to inspire people. Like, stop thinking of it as looking for a job where you can do that and really think about starting a business. And I was like, I don't know how to start a business. There's no entrepreneurs in my family. I don't have that. I wasn't raised around that. And Michelle was looking across the table for me and was like, look, I didn't really know much about starting a business myself, but it's not that hard. It just takes some courage. And so that kind of started the process. And over the next couple months, and it was literally New Year's of 2001 when I said to them, because then people started giving me advice, oh, go back to school or get an advanced degree, which is a great thing to do. You went to Duke and got an MBA, get a degree in psychology, a master's or a PhD, or get a degree in organizational. And for me, I love to learn. I never really loved school. I went to school because I liked playing baseball. I went to school because I had to as a kid. And then I did well in high school because I wanted to go to college and I wanted to go to a good school where I could play baseball. I did okay in college grades wise, but I didn't really think about going to grad school. Once I got to college, I was like, I got my education so that I could graduate. I didn't get my education so I could move on to the next thing. And the thought of going to a 2-year or 4-year or longer program to get an advanced degree just made my stomach turn. And I remember thinking, if I have to, I will. But if there's a way not to, I don't want to. And so what I decided at the beginning of 2001, 20 years ago, I was going to what I called design my own curriculum, which meant read books and listen to, at the time, literally cassette tapes or audio programs, take workshops or classes that I could afford, meet people who were coaching or speaking or writing or doing the kinds of things that I want to do. And in that process, I figured at the end of that year, I gave myself a full year, I would probably be broke and I might be in debt. But if I went back to school, I was going to be broke and in debt anyway. The only difference is I wouldn't have a degree at the end of it. But I said, I'll give it a year. And at the end of the year, if I'm broken in debt and I have no way of getting this business going, I could probably find a job. I grew up in the Bay Area. I went to Stanford. I know people. I learned some sales skills. I played baseball for all those years. Like, I have enough grit. I'll figure out, someone would hire me to do something, even if it's some random, even if I just have to go wait tables, which I had done in high school. But that was my plan. That's all the plan was, just figure out a way. And at the time, I was talking to someone about this just the other day. I literally figured out I needed to make about $2,000 a month in order to pay my rent and pay my bills and survive. And if I could make $2,500 or $3,000 a month, which was a ton of money to me, especially in those days, I could go out and maybe take someone out on a date or have a few drinks and have some fun in San Francisco. That was my mindset. And if I needed to go find a part-time job to supplement, I was hoping I could find someone who would hire me who had a small business doing the kind of work I ultimately wanted to do, so I could get a salary and get some mentorship and be an apprentice till I was courageous enough to launch my own. But because of the economic environment at the time, I couldn't find anybody to hire me. So I just had to figure it out myself. And it was pretty lean and scary. And like I said, even 20 years later, I still feel like I'm a novice as it relates to business acumen and sort of entrepreneurial nature. That's not how I'm wired, and it wasn't how I was raised. But I was more committed to and more passionate about the work I wanted to do, that I just figured some of that stuff out. And I reached out for a lot of help and a lot of support and tried to ask a bunch of really stupid questions, which I'm still totally comfortable doing all these years later.
I understand completely. So, Mike, help us understand, give the audience the one thing that made a difference in you going from dream and vision, obviously the hard work, the curriculum, to actually having your first clients and growing your clients. Because you work with some of the biggest clients in the world.
Well, and part of what it was, Rod. So again, my vision, I would read books by like people like Tony Robbins or Wayne Dyer or Deepak Chopra, people that would inspire me. And I'd walk into bookstores and I'd say, I want to do what they do. Now, I didn't really know what they did, except their books were on the shelves, or I'd see them on the Oprah Winfrey Show. But I didn't really know, what does that mean? And what I found out that I didn't know, there were people out in the world who were coaches and speakers who like companies would hire and organizations would hire. And they didn't have to be a household name. I didn't have to see them on Oprah or Larry King, and they didn't have to have a runaway best-selling book. Obviously, those things would help. But at 26 years old, when I started, the thought of sitting on the couch with Oprah seemed like I might as well climb Mount Everest or be a brain surgeon or walk on the moon or be the president of the United States. But I broke it down and I started meeting people who were doing it in a real way. So if I met you and I found out, oh, someone introduced me to you, Rod delivers workshops on communication or teamwork, and he works with these different clients. And someone said to me early on, if you want to be a professional speaker, which is what I then realized there's this whole world of professional speaking. What you need to do is go out and give 100 free talks at Rotary clubs and business networking groups or high school, wherever. And by the time you give 100 talks, someone will pay you. And I was like, okay, I could do that. So I literally decided I'm going to go give 100 free talks. And in the process, I'll figure out more of what's my message and how do I want to approach this. And eventually, and I think I had a little notebook, right? And my first talk was at my old high school because my buddy was now the assistant baseball coach and he brought me in to talk to a bunch of the athletes. My wife, now Michelle, was very well connected in Marin County where we actually live now. And through her business had gotten connected with a lot of business networking groups and Rotary clubs and things. So she started introducing me to people in Marin County, which is just a little north of San Francisco. And they started inviting me to speak at the Rotary clubs. And I was like, I think it was talk number 12 that I actually got paid. And that came about serendipitously. I met a woman at a workshop that I took, and I had my little business cards that said Mike Robbins, motivational speaker. And she worked for a company called Sutter Health. It's like medical centers and hospitals in California. And I gave her my card and told her I was a motivational speaker. And I didn't bother to tell her I hadn't actually gotten paid to be a motivational speaker yet. But then she called me like 2 weeks after the workshop and was like, oh, Mike, I'm so glad I got you on the phone. Our CEO from one of our hospitals in Sacramento just called. He's all stressed out because he has a big meeting with all of his managers next week and their speaker just canceled. But I told him, don't worry, I got a great guy. And I was like, really? And she goes, yeah, so do me a favor. Don't tell him that I've never heard you speak because I told him you were awesome.
Yeah.
And she's, I got to go. But I gave him your number. He's going to call you. And then I get off the phone with her and I wanted to say, no, Christine, no, I really don't know what I'm doing. This is going to be bad. And I'm waiting for him to call. And I called Michelle, my then girlfriend, now wife. And what do I do? What do I do? And we decided together, okay, look, don't lie to this man. But if he doesn't ask, you don't have to tell him. If he doesn't ask a lot of detail about who have you spoken for, because if I say the Mill Valley Rotary Club and Skyline High School of student athletes, he's not going to be that impressed. But we get on the phone, Rod, and he never really asks. I talked to him about my baseball background. He's interested. We start talking about teamwork and leadership and culture and all these things. And he hires me and is going to pay me money to come 6 days later to give a 90-minute presentation on the keys to creating a championship team to his 200 managers. And again, I'd given 10, 12 talks at this point, but this was like, oh, I'm getting paid to. So I spent the next 6 days working really hard preparing this presentation. And I was super scared. And I was like, I had just turned 27. I show up at the meeting. I walk into the room. It's a day-long meeting. I have the last 90 minutes of the meeting to speak. 90 minutes seemed like 90 hours to me. I did not know how I was going to fill that much time. I'm 27. I swear I was the youngest person in the room. And when the CEO meets me, he looks at me and I could tell the look on his face, like, who is this kid that I hired to be our speaker? This is right. I got up in front of the group. I was terrified. But I remember thinking to myself a couple things. After the first 10 minutes, when I finally caught my breath, I had them pair up and talk to each other. But it actually went pretty well overall. And as I was driving home, I remember thinking to myself, what did I do? How did I do that? I want to get better at that. And I remember thinking there were three things. One was that I tried to just be myself. not pretend to be someone else, not to pretend to be smarter than I was, to know more than I did, to be older than I was, to have more, just to be myself. The second thing I tried to do was like connect with the audience, human to human. And the third thing was just talk about the stuff that I know about. So I was telling stories. At that time, it was a lot of stories from when I played baseball and what I'd learned growing up and things that I'd seen. I was only 27. And I thought to myself, be myself, talk about what I know about, connect with the audience. 20 years later, probably 2,500 presentations around the country, around the world later. That's still what I think about. And even these days, as crazy as this COVID world we're in, on Zoom, on WebEx, if you'd have told me a year ago, Mike, you're going to never leave your house or your office and just present on Zoom, I would have said, first of all, what the hell is Zoom? I was barely using it a year ago. Second of all, I can't do that. But I still think about those same things. So that's a long rod way of me saying my main message to everybody listening, whatever your business is, most people listening probably aren't motivational speakers necessarily, although maybe some of you speak or coach, but it's about being ourselves first and foremost. And it's also about having the courage to say yes. And that's one of the things that I think I learned through my training in baseball. And even one of the common denominators I saw when I was in college at Stanford, because people would often ask me, even in those days, what do you notice about the other kids at Stanford? Are they all super smart? And I said, there were smart kids, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, these are the smartest people on the planet. What I learned was that most of the kids I went to college with were willing to, when someone said, do you want to do it? They'd say, yes, I'll do it, or I'll go first, or I'll try. There was that willingness to try. And I remember thinking, I wonder if that's a really important part of success, is just a willingness to try, a willingness to fail, not that we want to, but just a willingness to say yes. And the mantra that I used when I was starting my business all those years ago, Rod, is that saying, jump and find your wings on the way down. And that continues to be something that I try to remind myself of, is just say yes and then figure it out. And if you really suck at it and it really won't work, you'll know pretty soon. And then you can pivot and adjust and just say no the next time to that thing. But say yes first and try to figure it out.
That's awesome. Mike, you're so right. Sometimes it's great to say no to things, but more importantly, the ability to say yes and take opportunities. And you created your own opportunities. I think a lot of people understand you never know when they're going to come. But when they come, you better be saying, yeah, I'll do it and try it. And you fail. So what? You learn. Hey, this is Rod Santomassimo with the Massimo Show. And oh boy, am I pumped. My new book, Knowing Isn't Doing. Well, when it launched, it hit #1. That's right. Top selling sales book in the entire country on Amazon.com. We're so excited to share many of our proprietary Massimo methods to allow our readers to start finally building that business and the life they've always desired. To get your own copy or learn more, visit www.knowingisn'tdoing.com. So how do you go from that, speaking in front of your high school student athletes, to speaking in front of some of the world's biggest corporation? How do you make that jump?
I think it's an incremental process in some ways. Again, 20 years ago, I was fortunate. So I got lucky in this sense, Rod, growing up and then living here in the Bay Area at that time in particular, 20 years ago, post.com bust. What was happening was a bunch of people who were my age at the time. Again, I'm 26, 27, 28 years old. People in their late 20s, early 30s had all gotten laid off from these internet companies that basically went away. They were getting rehired by companies like Wells Fargo and Chevron and Clorox and traditional companies, a lot of them based here. There were other tech companies. And what was happening at that time, we still deal with this to some degree today, but Gen Xers were interacting with and working with baby boomers, and there were cultural differences, simple things, even like language and clothes and all the normal sort of generational stuff. But companies, I started getting hired. Again, I was out in the world speaking, still doing a lot of free events. But someone would come up to me and say, I'm a manager at Wells Fargo and I've got a bunch of kids your age on my team and I don't know how the heck to talk to them. Or they show up at work in jeans and Birkenstocks and drives me crazy or whatever. And I'm like, why is that a big deal? But what happened was I started realizing there was something about my perspective and my approach, given my background and how I grew up and playing baseball, that it's like, oh, creating cultures where people who are different can work together and be successful. That's super important. So finding kind of my content and my approach and how it fit into solving certain business problems that existed at the time. Those type of problems still exist today, but it was starting to meet the market, if you will. And then in terms of getting from talking to the kids at my high school to then talking to executives at Google and some of these big companies. I would say what's happened over the years for me is now I'm about to turn 47 years old. I've grown and evolved over 20 years. A lot of the people who originally hired me and brought me in to do stuff, they've become senior executives. So I say all of this because with all of the great, I have a podcast and all of the media stuff I've done over the years, both social media and traditional media and books and everything and TED Talks and all the stuff, I still find that most of our business comes from relationships and connections that I have. And I get phone calls now from guys literally I've known for 20 years. Hey, dude, I'm the head of sales at this company. Come over and help me with my team. And these are people I've known. Maybe we played ball together years ago, or they partnered with me a long time ago, and we've just built those relationships. Or we get inquiries directly into the business that are like, hey, I was at this event where Mike spoke, or when I used to work for company X. So I say that because I think what happens in today's world, and look, I'm old school in the way that I think about this, Rod. Yes, let's utilize all the amazing aspects of technology that we can. And there's incredible ways to scale marketing and get our messages out and be really niched about it and use all this data. And that's fantastic. But at the end of the day, depending on the business that you have, but especially a service-based business like mine, it's about people. It's about relationships. I could have the fanciest video in the world. I could do the best Facebook marketing campaign you've ever seen. I could, whatever. And at the end of the day, they've got to trust me and know that I can come in and actually provide value for them. And if they're in a senior leadership position for their whole division or their whole company. And I think also the other part I would say, for what it's worth, is my training as an athlete really helped me in that the game is the game, whether you're playing in Little League or in front of 5 people, or you're playing when I pitched in the College World Series in 1995 on national TV, I'd never pitched in front of 25,000 people. I'd never been on national TV, and I was scared and I couldn't catch my breath. And the first 4 pitches I threw almost went over the catcher's head because I was so nervous. But once I calmed down, I realized, you know what? It's still 60 feet, 6 inches from the mound to the plate. It's still 90 feet with the bases. It's still the same game I've been playing since I was a kid. I just have to deal with my emotions about being on this stage. And I think the same is true when I'm speaking on a stage, literally in front of, I haven't been on a stage in months, of course, but in front of thousands of people. It's noticeably different than when I'm speaking in a room of 20 people, just energetically, but it's still the same. I'm still communicating a message to a group of people and wanting to engage them. It's just the stakes sometimes change, or the size changes, or, oh, it's the CEO and their leadership team and their leaders. But it's the story in our head that is more intimidating than the actuality of what we're doing.
Yeah. And my takeaway from that, Mike, is you're absolutely correct. We all focus now, what's the latest gadget, the latest technology, latest this, latest that. First of all, some of the best gadget you can have is your telephone. Pick up and talk to people.
I know. One. Old school, man. I love it. Yeah.
They call it old school, but it's still the way that people want to communicate. And you mentioned earlier about this idea of authenticity. You went from being a phenomenal, one of the best pitchers in the planet, because I can say that because anyone that gets drafted in the major leagues is one of the best pitchers in the planet. When you think of all the pitchers in the world, that's the way it works.
Right.
It just is. You obviously have an injury. You got to start a new career. You get an opportunity. You take it. You speak. You get noticed. You speak more. You teach yourself. You create your own curriculum. All on the way, you're being yourself. You weren't trying to be Tony Robbins. That wasn't who you were, right? You weren't being Grant Cardone. You were just being Mike.
Yeah.
Where's that level of authenticity? Why is it so important?
One of my many mentors over the years, is a guy named Dan Millman, who wrote a great book called Way of the Peaceful Warrior. It was one of the seminal books that I read when I was in that process of, I want to do this. And I read that book and went, oh, and I met Dan, and Dan said something to me the very first time I met him. And we've stayed friends over all these years. He said, look, Mike, a couple things to remember. Because I said to him, I remember sitting down and saying to him, I was just wanting to start my business. And I said, I feel like every idea I have is not my own. It's like I'm stealing it from you or from all the other books I've read. Like I don't have an original thought. And he said, first of all, everybody feels like that. Everybody who, especially when you first start, that's just part of the process. Like you imitate others until you find your own voice. Don't worry about it. He said, but the thing you got to remember, he said, and he said this thing so beautifully and so succinctly to me. He said, Mike, I believe there's one light and there's many lamps. Your job is to be the brightest, most genuine version of your own lamp you can be. He said, you could go out in the world and say exactly the same things that I say, write the same things, talk about the same things, teach the same things. And some people will resonate with me and they won't resonate with you and vice versa. It's not up to us to figure that out. And when he said that, something about it just relaxed me. And I realized, oh, and the things that I've learned over the years, just from a speaking standpoint, when I first started, what resonated with people most, it was the stories that I would tell. And not that my story was interesting. Yeah, I played ball and I hurt my arm. And it was the realness, sharing about my experience, some of the pain, some of the triumph, some of the challenge, some of the insight, and then realizing that the more personal, the more universal. So when I tell my story about my baseball career ending, there's very few people on the planet that can relate to that specifically, right? If I said, raise your hand if you were a left-handed pitcher who blew your arm out and had 3 surgery, nobody's going to raise their hand. But when I say, I realized, oops, I forgot to appreciate it while it was happening. I was so busy trying to make it. I didn't appreciate myself and what I was doing. I'll often say, how many of you can relate to that? And everybody raises their hand because everyone can relate to that. That part's universal. And so what I learned early on from a speaking standpoint, but also I think this is true in life, is that, look, everybody's just doing the best they can. We're all struggling with certain things. We all have certain strengths and talents. We all have certain liabilities and things that aren't so great. And it's like what seems to resonate for me in my work and resonate with people, but also have me get off my own back is just not trying to be perfect, not trying to do it right all the time. Because I think that's one of the things that gets in our way of success, particularly as solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, is the perfection gets in the way of forward action. I love the mantra of done's better than perfect. It's just get it done, get it out, get it up. You can iterate along the way, but don't think it has to be perfect before you put it out in the world.
I couldn't agree more. Mike, so what I heard you say was you're a coach, you're a speaker, and let's face it, I'm a coach, I'm a speaker. There are probably thousands, if not more, speakers and coaches. And you had a mentor, my mentor, Ralph Spencer, who passed. He told me, Rod, I'm going to share with you now. He was not as eloquent as you're. He said, Rod, I want to tell you something. We all share the same shit. It's all about the relationships you have and truly how hard you want to be successful. And while you did say that people are doing the best they can, that may or may not be true. I want to get your impression of this, because it was Nito Corbane.
I know Nito, yeah.
He's actually the president of the university my son goes to. So that's one reason I did
High Point.
Nito.
Right?
Yes. Nito once said, we don't earn what we desire, we earn what we deserve.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. Some people just work harder than others. So where does that work ethic, how does that come into this whole equation, Mike, of being the light?
Look, I think it's big. I think at the end of the day, I had an old baseball coach that used to always say to us, this is my coach at Stanford, Dean Stotts, would say, there's only 2 things in life you can control: your attitude and your effort. Everything else is some version of out of your control. So I think our attitude, our mindset, our approach has a lot to do with it. But to what Nito was talking about, and I know Nito Corbane through the National Speakers Association, which is, I've been connected with NSA for the last 20 years, and it's been a huge support and inspiration for me in this business. But I do think that hard work and the effort we put forth is super important. I've learned there's a dark side to the hard work thing. Not that we don't want to work hard, but I think, look, hard work is one of the things in our culture that people praise, and good, you work hard. It's like we almost celebrate workaholism. I've had to learn as an entrepreneur, because in sports and in school, there were built-in breaks. You work hard and then the semester ends or the term ends. You work hard and then there's an off season. So there's some downtime. In real life, as you and I both know, and everybody listening, now that I'm married and have children and been running my own business for 20 years, there's no built-in break. And so it's hard sometimes. Like I've had to figure out how to take breaks and how to dial it back. That said, I think at the end of the day, we are 100% in control of our effort and how much we put forth into something. I learned this as an athlete, and I hold this true in my life now, that if it doesn't end up turning out, if it doesn't work out the way I want it to, which many things haven't, by the way, in my life, in my business, right? I don't want it to be because I didn't put forth the effort. We've all had this happen, whether it's in school or in sports or in business or in life. It's like something doesn't go well and you reflect on it and go, you know what? I mailed it in. I cut corners and didn't really do. And that's a terrible feeling, not only the outcome, but then when you can reflect back and go, I could have done more. I could have put in more effort and energy. Coming back to, hey, if this really matters to me, I'm going to leave it all out on the field. And at the end of the day, even if I lose, back when I was pitching, Rod, the worst thing that happened when you're a pitcher, there's some bad things that can happen, is you get pulled out of the game or you give up a home run in the bottom of the ninth to lose the game, whatever. I hated giving up home runs, but I'd prefer to give up a home run than to walk in a run.
Yeah.
Because if I threw a good pitch, if I threw a really good pitch that I wanted to aggressively, and the guy just put a good swing on it, and I actually, when I gave up a home run, I'd rather give up a 450-foot bomb than one of those weak wall scratchers that barely gets over, because I want to know, okay, man, you really beat me. But if I did it where I was scared, or I got behind and I didn't want to walk him, and I threw a wimpy pitch and then he hit it out, or I did something, then I'm like, that didn't feel good. But when I was out there aggressive, and I threw the pitch I wanted to throw, I just didn't hit my spot, or you know what, he just put a good swing on, he beat me. It's like, I tipped my cap, you won, I lost, I can live with that. I think about that in my life now. It's like, when something doesn't go the way I want it to, did I put forth the most effort I could have put forth? Like this last year with COVID, for all of us who do this kind of work, right? Literally the way that I and my team, the way we primarily make money is that I go out into the world and speak in front of crowds of people, groups of people, whether it's 10 executives sitting around a table or it's thousands of people at a conference. That all went away in March. Gone. No more, no meetings. Sorry. And we were all looking at each other. Oh no, we're screwed. What are we going to do? I've been doing this for 20 years. I went through the recession in 08, 09. That was really hard. And we took our lumps, but they didn't stop travel and stop events and stop. But what did we do? Everybody else, we had to stop and reflect and pivot and go, okay, how can we still do this? How do we still serve people? How do we still put forth the work? And how do we figure out, is there a way that we can monetize this? And in some ways, it forced me to look at some things virtually and digitally that I'd been resisting, that were uncomfortable, that I wasn't that good at, that I didn't really like doing, that I'll do that later because I was busy. Now it's, nope, this is all you're going to do because this is all you can do. So again, necessity is the mother of invention. But for better or worse, I probably worked harder in 2020 than possibly any other year of the 20 years of my business. And I didn't leave the house basically after the first week in March. And it was bizarre and still is. We're still in the middle of it, but it's okay. The effort is still necessary. And that's what we all can remember, whatever your business is. I'm not saying work yourself to death. I'm not saying don't take breaks. I'm not saying don't have some sense of balance, but each and every one of us can determine how much effort we put forth. And that's 100% up to us. That's not up to anybody else. And if it means sometimes you got to stay up a little late or get up a little early, or sometimes you got to say no to certain things, that's all part of it. But it's easy to make excuses. It's harder to actually do the work.
So true. Mike, leave our audience with one word of advice, and then we'll share with the audience how to get in touch with you. You've been doing this now for 20 years in all fields competitive. So it's not like one's more competitive. I don't like people. You're in competitive fields. You feel it's not competitive, right?
Exactly.
You've been an ultra performer in an ultra competitive field, sports and in business. So give us one word of advice that you would say for those that are thinking about, what do I do now? What would you tell them?
You know what? It's funny, as you said that what popped into my head was this, and it's both sides of this. Be willing to both ask for and offer support. What I mean by that is, so on the one hand, asking for help is really hard. It's vulnerable. It's scary. We don't like to do it. We're worried we'll get rejected. We're worried we'll get judged. We're worried people will think whatever. We will burden people. There's all these reasons why we don't ask for help. But I love the saying, the answer is always no if you don't ask. And you'd be amazed at how many people are absolutely willing to help you if you're willing to ask. And simultaneously, not always as a tit for tat or back and forth with that person or those people specifically, but orient yourself in the direction of where can I offer support and be of service of other people. One of the things that helped us pivot when we first went into the pandemic, I remember saying to my team, and we were in the midst of, we had a book launch coming up and we had just hired new people, all this stuff. It was like the worst possible timing for our business. Because I tend to be a little bit risk averse when it comes to certain things, especially investing certain money in the business. But I went all in at the end of 19, like to 2020 is going to be, and I was freaked out. But I remember saying to my team in the midst of my freak out, okay, look, I don't know what's going to happen. This business could go under in the next 6 months. Like, I'm scared. However, I want to be of service to people in the world, in my life, the people that I know, our clients. Like, I'm just going to show up and try to offer what I can offer from sitting here in my office on my microphone or on the computer or with whatever, put it out into the world and hope that it'll benefit people in some way and offer support and reach out to some of our key clients. What can I do to help? And I meant this. Now, yes, there was a bit of an ulterior motive that at some point I'm hoping this will open up some avenues to where we can actually make some money and stay in business. But ultimately, it's if I'm going to go down and we're going to go down in this, I want to go down swinging and I want to go down helping. So that's a long way of me saying, ask for help when you need it, but also look for where you can help people. And one of the ways, Rob, when I first started my business that I was able to really get the support of some very successful people in this business was that I offered to help them even though it didn't seem like I had much to offer. I'm this young kid. What the heck do I know? Could I introduce you to anyone? Could I pick you up at the airport? Whatever, just ways that I could be of service. And that turned into a bunch of mentoring relationships that really benefited me. And I genuinely wanted to help and serve them. Yes, I had an interest in being able to receive something, but it wasn't an expectation. It was just, let me show up and try to support and help and honor the people that I really admire. And if I'm just around them or connected to them in some way, I bet it'll rub off on me. And it did in so many ways.
Love it. Love it. Mike, people want to know and get in touch with you more. How do they do that?
Best place is at our website, which is just mike-robbins.com. That's MIKE-ROBBINS.com.
Okay. Everyone, I highly recommend you check out Mike Robbins, check out his books, as well as check out the opportunities for him to present to you and or your company. So, as we always share at the Massimo Group, when Mike has bestowed his knowledge upon you, it's nice, but it really doesn't matter because knowing isn't doing. So go out and apply the knowledge. Until next time, this is Rod Santomassimo with The Massimo Show. I want to thank you for listening to this version of The Massimo Show. And please go out and share this with your friends, your colleagues. Heck, share it with your dog. Just share it. And more importantly, just give me some feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. We all grow from understanding what our audience wants to hear. So until next time, this is Rod Santomassimo with The Massimo Show. Hey, this is Rod Santomassimo with the Massimo Group. And did you know over the last 12 plus years, we've worked with thousands of independent contractors, solopreneurs, and small business owners in helping them achieve the business and the life that they've always desired. To learn more how we could possibly help you achieve your goals, please visit www.massimo.coach. That's www.massimo.coach.